Voluptuous life. Oh my God, we're really warming up with the issues that we're about to talk about, and I'm with the man of the hour, Michael Lee McDonald, not Michael J. McDonald, but Michael Lee McDonald. Woo, Mike, we're getting into the most important topics that we need to discuss. We were talking about you as a young Michael, transitioned from another state, going back to Vegas, your high school life, who is Michael as a high school student. You were actually a leader already when you were younger, and it shows. And now, ladies and gentlemen who just tune in, I would like to say hi, by the way. I saw a couple of people that are very special to me is tuning in right now. To Tita Josie Harrison, hi, thank you for watching us. And to Dr. J. Tan, of course. I invited a couple of people to watch us because this episode actually is very, very important for me. It's going to be really liberating and really very informative. So this segment will talk about what Michael D. McDonald is fighting about, why he is in politics, and why? How did it start, Mike? I mean, what made you go into politics? Was it like a dream coming, or was it a person that motivated you? Was it like a situation?
Well, let me tell you, my mom's side of the family was in politics for a while, so we'd always go to their re-election campaigns. Or my grandpa was a constable out here, and he ran for office. My uncle was a judge out here, and so was my cousin. And my uncle's a famous judge who did the Baines trial and stuff. And my cousin did the O.J. Simpson arraignment and stuff. But
your cousin?
Yeah.
Oh, what was the name?
Joe Bonaventure. Yeah.
Because when you say that name, I'm like, oh, okay, this man is with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. Well. I mean, I saw that side, and I saw a lot of the political aspects of things, and I thought maybe one day, I might get into it if so called. So. But yeah, what really got me started is after I went through a terrible divorce.
Was it a year ago or?
It's been ongoing since 2015. I mean,
wow, and it's like almost 3 years now.
Almost 3 years, yeah. That's where I got all the gray hairs from the divorce. Yeah, so.
In your 30s, that may be something. It's just out of stress of all these things are happening to you. I guess
it's been a crazy story. But, I mean, I went through so many things with this divorce. I mean. You think that you have equal rights to your own children, but if there's any reason they can take it from any kind of allegations or anything, if you have a vindictive ex, they can take your kids from you. I mean, I have a crazy story. I mean, I had my kids every weekend for a year. And
when was the last time you saw your kids?
Last time I saw my kids was Christmas of 2016.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for a woman. I'm not so gender specific, but it must be really revealing for a man to have that kind of emotion and kind of yearning to have no kids. I mean, you haven't seen your kids.
Well, let me tell you, Lynn, my kids were my life. I was their coach. I love them. I teach them. I don't just put them in front of the iPad or TV. We play with them. I teach them things. I taught my son how to swim at a year and a half. My daughter too, and I taught them how to. Their alphabet and their reading and writing. I was very involved.
And how old are they now?
3 and 6, and not be able to see them for a year. They probably.
Was there ever a time that they asked why is mom and dad separated, or why can't we see you, Dad?
I think they understand, and kids are pretty smart, but not. I don't know what she's telling you. I mean, for a year and a half, it's ridiculous. I had them every weekend for a year, and we'd always have fun, go to the parks. And then I went to trial, and my attorney didn't show up.
Let's go back. I have a confession to make. This is no longer. I was like joking a few segments ago because Michael was supposed to show up in my show last Thursday night, and he's a very good friend of mine. He has become a very good friend of mine. And then all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm on my way. He sent me his bio, and I was like, and all of a sudden, where is Michael J. McDonald? Where's Mike? I mean, he is not the flaky Mike. He's not ever a flaky Mike. He would always talk and say, we arranged everything that he'll be here a week ago, and we will talk about him, his profile, all his reforms. And all of a sudden I couldn't find him, and he said with permission tonight to tell his story, he was actually arrested in his workplace. And you can tell me more about that.
Yeah,
and this is the second time, right?
And this is what stems from all that. I had no criminal record. I never went to jail or anything like that before, but around the same time after I can tell you, I went to, I had my kids every weekend, and my attorney, the judge ended up saying, "Oh, you keep me up at night, I'm going to punish you." for a tracking device. I worked at a tracking device company. I was an IT manager. And it was company policy to be on both vehicles. And the judge said, "You keep me up, and I'm going to punish you. You can't see your kids this weekend." Then they found out that my attorney blew his brains out, and after that, I got completely hosed. I didn't see my own kids for like 9
But
years.
what's more disheartening is what happened to him. That was the time when I didn't know him yet. That was the time when they put you in jail too.
I went to jail for 6 months for trying to
what reason was that?
trying to call my own kids. 179
Can you
days.
tell us exactly what happened on that one?
So I had contradictory orders saying that after my attorney shot himself, the judge put in. Said the judge granted a TPO and extended it for a whole year. Said I can't have any contact with my ex. But then she put in other orders on the divorce decree a few months later after she went on maternity leave, and she said you can have reasonable phone conversation with kids. You can go to the kids' school every other weekend. The TPO says I can't go to the school. I'm supposed to. I can't be 100 yards near her school yet. My daughter's daycare is 100 yards. So anyway, she ended up going and putting. Ended up calling me from a number. "Give me more money. I'll let you talk to the kids." I call her back. She said.
Is she still harassing you right now in terms of phone
I
calls?
believe that's the reason why I went to jail the other day. I don't know if she did it or Metro.
Because you're not supposed to communicate with this woman.
And I've been staying very far from her, but I went to jail for 6 months from January 2017 till June of.
That must be so disheartening that
Then we'll have to do another segment on the horrors of jail and the criminal justice system, because it's insane what's going on there. If you don't take a plea deal, they'll force you to stay in jail or bail out. And most people can't afford bail. And then they'll appoint you.
And what was? Can you tell us exactly how much was your bail for the first jail?
The very first time I went to jail, it was for I had a bench warrant issued for my arrest. I got a little card in the mail that said I had a bench warrant. No hearing, no trial, no evidence.
Is this the same judge before and now?
No, it went to municipal court judge, Judge Almasi, who's not on the bench anymore. But this bench card warrant came in the mail. I had to go to a business trip to Canada. I'm like, okay, well, I need to get this taken care of, because if I leave the country, I might go to jail. So I went to go try to quash it myself. I went to the courthouse and they said, "Oh, you have to go see the judge." So I go upstairs and go see the judge. Yeah. And I have this motion to quash. The marshals put me in handcuffs, and that was the very first time I went to jail. I ended up taking a plea deal on going to. They got me for going to the church, violating protective order. So I went to the church after 60 days not seeing my son. I went to the church. It's separate from the church. It's a daycare. And I went over there and I saw my son. Daddy loves you. I didn't abandon you. And they wouldn't let me see my daughter. I ended up leaving, and she called the cops. And that was the first time. I then took a plea deal for that, where they gave me 179 days suspended. So, which I didn't know at the time, is that I just took that plea deal. When I made that phone call back to her after she called me, made me call her back, that's when she said, "I'm recording this." I said, "I don't consent." And then on Veterans Day.
That is something you need to tell someone when it's
and make sure if you ever do records, you have to say that this is being recorded, and both parties have to consent. It's a two-party state in Nevada, which I wasn't too sure. But anyway, I said I did not consent. She still was able to use that to get me 179 days. She also, on Veterans Day of 2016, said, "Come to my parents' house in November. I'm not there. Come pick up the kids." I show up. She wouldn't follow the quarter to do it in the parking lot. I show up, and she's there. She calls. I get my daughter in my arm, a backpack with the other arm, and she won't give me my son. I end up leaving. They call the cops on me. I leave. The police called me and say, "You violated the protective order," and she said, "You pushed her." I never touched her at all. And then.
Is it like a very unjust system? Like sometimes I'm a woman, but I'm very, very straightforward. Does it sometimes they usually say, "Oh, the woman has to have the rights instead of the males"? I mean,
the domestic violence is so big, anything can constitute domestic violence.
And we're talking about that reform that you're right now fighting for, which is parental reforms. Can you shed light on this one and tell our viewers about it? I mean, not everybody's aware of that, but it is actually a huge problem.
The TPOs and the ED?
Yes, and regarding the parental reforms that are court
system. So that's, let me tell you some of that. But anyway, that's what happened in my story, and the parental rights stuff. That this is what's going on in America. We have an adversarial court process that's a $70 billion industry. There's more money in family court than all the courts combined. And once these attorneys go and you have to file an FDF, which is a financial disclosure form. The lawyers know exactly how much they bleed you, and they purposely cause as much contention as they can to make both parties fight. And then they purposely separate you so you can't have any communication with your ex. Now Nevada is the #1 for domestic violence, and there's a very,
Like how many percent or how many out of 10?
a lot of deaths were occurring because they would go, and that's why it used to be a 24-hour cool-off period and stuff, but now they arrest you for any reason.
And I'm sorry, that domestic violence is not just for males, but also for females, right?
Yeah, it is for
I mean,
females,
both
but there's a big stigma on mostly
Stigma.
men. Yeah, I mean there's a perceived bias there that women don't abuse men, and it does, it occurs too. But one thing that's really jacked up is even if you don't want to press charges on your spouse or whoever your person that you live with, the state will pick it up and purposely charge you with it. And then you're in endless litigation. You have to pay all these fines. You lose your gun rights for 7 years if you get a domestic violence situation. In my situation, the judge threw the book at me. 52 domestic violence cases, GPS monitoring for 6 months. She had a domestic violence advocate, and they.
And how do you prove this situation?
And Linda, they had no evidence. There's no bruises, no nothing. And just her parents collaborated it. They said, "Oh yeah, he pushed her." They didn't even say.
Oh wow! So you can just ask somebody, "Hey, you tell this this the judge or this."
False witness.
Yeah, like,
and
so
that's all. There's no evidence or anything. And if there's a high sister, you beat the crap out of this, so yeah, maybe you should go to jail. But for no evidence, nothing. I go there. I got an ankle bracelet on for 6 months. I was the first person in the White House with an ankle bracelet. Because as soon as I got out of jail, I went and lobbied for equal parenting. Like that's one thing we need to have. In Nevada, we have a thing called. There's a law passed called Ep.3, which is
what does it say?
Is a presumption in the custody battles. But you're already guilty till proven innocent. So you go to court, you're on unequal footing, especially when there's a biasness against men can't raise women or men can't raise children the same as a woman. So you go into court, you're already guilty. And you have to prove that you're a good father or something. And there's no fitness test. There should be a high set standard of what you can do to lose your own children. Mm-hmm. You should have God-given unalienable rights. So I went to D.C. after I got out. I went to the Million Parent March, and I met people from across the country that have been affected by this.
So this is not just a few people on the planet or in the country, but it's actually it's a nationwide.
I mean, not just nationwide; it's worldwide. Actually, it's occurring throughout the world. They're using the family court and people in these unfortunate circumstances to prey on them and when you have your children is the most valuable thing that you have, that possession you can have, right, is your children, and they prey on that. They'll make you pay every dime you have, and I know people paying $100,000 to bring it to the Supreme Court to see their own children. So I went to and lobbied in Congress. I went to the House and the Senate. I went to almost every state, and especially the ones on the judicial committees and stuff, and passed out literature and stuff about what the effects are of parental alienation and pathogenic parenting. And we now have a bill called HJ 121 for a constitutional amendment for equal parenting. So if this gets passed, it'll set a federal law for equality. So I'm praying that it helps get put in, and I was very, very thankful for that to be put in, and I hope that goes. But we should not be having these all-out battles. I mean, kids. It's been proven that one of the root causes of all the society's issues, anxiety, depression, mental illness, criminal history, drug use, teen pregnancy, even, mass shootings, all occurring because there's children that don't have they don't have parents there, and a lot of it's because of the
Is government even supportive of this? Like, programs of like federal and everything? Are there programs that are really supporting this
kind of
reforms?
Let me tell you, Lynn, there's a thing called Title 4D with the Social Security Act. For every dollar that's collected in child support, it's a federal matching program that the Department of Family Services. So they purposely strip children from their parents, and then the government's profiting on it. So there's so much money going into it. And if you don't pay your child support, there's a thing called Title 42, Section 666.
Take note of that.
It's a Child Support Enforcement Act, so they can throw people in debtor's prison for not paying child support. They can take your license away. How are you supposed to go to work and pay your child or take care of your children or yourself? And then they also take away your passport. It's such this system is in dire need of reform. Yeah. And if we don't do it, our children are going to be affected. And if you look at there's even an ACE study that shows that it's called adverse childhood experiences, and this is one of the root causes of why people have the amount of issues they do. It was actually from an obesity study that they had, and they found out that the root cause was all these parents were separated from their children. They didn't have their fathers, they didn't have their mothers, and it's causing all these issues. Our homelessness, our mentally ill, our suicide rates. I mean, over 22 days.
You've just an improvement in statistics that causes like that. In Nevada, or let's go small scale. In Las Vegas, who are you can say, I know there are a lot of politicians, there are a lot of civil persons that you like get involved in this kind of reforms. But who are the top five, like well-known advocates of this parental reform? Like,
well, nationwide,
excluding
or
you because you're already in Vegas for now.
Well, in Vegas we have a group of people that. So I'm part of the Nevada Fathers' Rights Movement, the Family Civil Liberties Union, Veterans in Politics. They've been very instrumental.
That's Steve Sanson.
Steve Sanson, yeah, he's been awesome, and I've been partnered with him to help bring out the corruption and things.
And you met Steve also because of your
yeah, actually, I met him coming out of jail. Actually, yeah, he came. Arthur Terbellion, he's been an awesome advocate. I actually get this. My very first day I went to family court, I see somebody outside protesting for father's rights and veterans' rights, and it was Linda Marquis. I was like, great, my judge is being. I'm like, oh, maybe I should get a different judge.
And let me correct
it's an ominous sign.
Yeah, we're not only talking about fathers here. To those who are watching, if you're also a mother as a victim of that, you can actually voice out your opinions or anything or any messages to us. Mike is here ready to answer questions if you have anything to say about the parental reforms and criminal law reforms of child support, for that matter. And even if you're off air and you see this after the live, you can message us regarding that matter.
So Lynn, I've been talking to, I know a bunch of people here in Vegas that are being affected by this, and I run across people every day. I was helping a lot of family courts. I go down there a lot, and I hear these stories. These heartbreaking stories. It's soul ripping when you can't see your own children. Yeah. These people have PTSD from legal abuse. The abuse of the system on them. And they take your houses, your property, your kids. It's ridiculous. I could tell you all kinds of stories that people have been alienated for years, or they're getting supervised visits where they have somebody watch you with a clipboard. They put them in jail for not paying child support or not following these.
And that's from the point of view of a male, a father, right? Yeah. What about the female? Have you heard? What are stories that you've heard about the female side, the mother? Like I know one friend of ours that I don't know if she wants to be mentioned. I know one who's Vila was one of her friends.
Luda's been a very instrumental piece in this too. She's been alienated from her son. And then try to label her. They should have joint custody, and now she's got every other weekend with her own child. And just they made up a bunch of things. Her ex put a recording device in there. So her and there's a bunch of women that have been affected by Raina Hughes. She's getting sanctioned next month up in Reno, as she's been if the litigant is prettier than her, she'll go and there's perceived biases. That's why there shouldn't be one person playing God with people's lives and their children's lives.
Wow, we're getting hot in here, or warmer in here with that topics and issues. There's one more segment ahead of us. And if you'd like to comment, you want to be on air with us for the last segment, we'll be talking deeply more into parental alienation for that matter. That stuff. But we got to face it. This is the raw, unfiltered, and liberating side of talking about parental reforms. We'll be right back with our last segment with the Michael Lee McDonald and Wawa on My Voluptuous Life.
Thanks.